Yo, what's happening out there, guys? Welcome back to Rule of Two Review. I gotta tell you, I'm still reeling from the crazy excitement from yesterday's announcement of The Last of Us Part 2. I still can't even fathom that that game is actually going to be real and include Joel and Ellie, and it's just blowing my mind, and I'm so happy about it, but that doesn't mean I don't have other stuff to talk about, of course, about Nintendo. So with Nintendo's January Switch reveal event looming, coming up just around the corner about 5 or so weeks from now, I've been thinking about what that reveal event could actually be, beyond just what they might actually show us for the Switch and all of the excitement around the games and the price and the release date, what's happening with Zelda, what's happening with Mario, what's happening with third parties, and all of that stuff that we all can't wait to hear. I also wonder what it means contextually for Nintendo as a company and their future business plan. The long and the short of it is that I wonder if maybe this could be the genesis of something that becomes more regular or common for Nintendo. We might finally be in the era where Nintendo's willing to bring back an annual event that's hosted by them and is focused specifically on Nintendo's products. Obviously, the first thing a lot of the old school gamers like myself think of when they hear this is probably Space World, which for you younger gamers, you may or may not already know this, but way back in the day, mid to late 90s, I think 2000 or 2001 was the last year it happened, it was exactly that, Nintendo's annual event, where they hosted basically a convention. And it was like, here's our new products, here's our new hardware, here's our new games, here's our new plans, all of these great things. That's where the GameCube was shown, the Wind Waker for the first time was shown with its new art style. Even the year before the Wind Waker, they showed the very famous Space World 2000 demo of a next-generation Legend of Zelda that looked like it was going to be that, GameCube version of what Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask were on the Nintendo 64. It was really great stuff. The first time they showed off, I think, Nintendo 64 and Super Mario 64 and the controller for the console and all these different things. Space World was great, and that happened in an era where the internet really didn't, I can't say it didn't exist, but it certainly wasn't as impactful as it is nowadays. A lot of people, most people, didn't even have internet, and those that did, it was only dial-up, and you sure as hell weren't looking at video streamed from different conventions all over the world. So if you think about the impact a convention like that held way back in the day when the internet really wasn't penetrating everyone's homes like it is nowadays, it really goes to show what it could be like today. And we live in a world where E3 and Tokyo Game Show and all of these different things are streamed. We all pay attention to them every time it happens. We all get on our computers and our phones, and we're watching all of this gaming news come at us live as it happens, which is great. It's really exciting. It's one of the best benefits of being a gamer today. But Nintendo maybe has a part to play in this. So to be fair, this is really just all speculative from my part, but in thinking about what they're going to be doing with this event in January, how exciting it is for us the gamer, and how completely important and extremely integral to Nintendo's success of the Switch it's going to play, it makes me realize that maybe Nintendo needs to get themselves back in this game. They're the ones that really kind of started the trend back in the 90s with Space World, which is also when CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, happened, that maybe it's time for Nintendo to bring that back. We already live in a world where Sony the last couple of years has decided to start doing it, and that's one of the things that also kicked my brain into this line of thinking, is that, well, Nintendo has an event coming up in January. It's focused solely on the Switch, and Sony also is doing their own annual event nowadays with PlayStation Experience every December. Now this is the third year in a row. Maybe Nintendo's willing to adopt the same idea. Part of the reason my brain took this idea far enough for me to even make a video about it and discuss it with you guys is how much I realized it would be a smart move for Nintendo business-wise, and how much we might be living in a new era of Nintendo where they would even consider something like this. Obviously, the last decade or decade and a half or so of Nintendo's business, you wouldn't really think that this would be something they would consider, that it would be superfluous money for them to even spend, potentially a waste of time. Would they generate the mind share and the business dollar out of it that would make it even worth it for them to do so? You and I might say, yes, there would be a benefit for doing that, Nintendo, please do it. But the Nintendo of the most recent years, I don't think would necessarily agree. But nowadays, in this new regime, in this new era, with this new console coming up, and we know that Nintendo's branching out with licensing and theme parks and movies potentially and all these different things, we might actually be living in a day where Nintendo, today's Nintendo, 2016 and 2017 Nintendo, would maybe consider doing something like this and actually see the benefits. Because, let's be honest, there would be a benefit. If there was an annual reason for Nintendo at the same time every year to present their products, get it out to the gamer, get people excited about what Nintendo is doing and who they are as a company, that would only be exciting for us the gamer and potentially very great for Nintendo. To be fair, in a way, the idea is kind of a replacement or maybe the next evolutionary step of what Nintendo's Directs are. So obviously that's where you get into the gray area of this idea, and if it would make sense or if it even could be a reality, is that maybe Nintendo wants to continue the Nintendo Direct thing and do Nintendo Directs happening frequently throughout the year, potentially negate the reason or the need or even the benefit for them to do something like an annual show, like what Space World was or like what the PlayStation Experience is. And I don't really have the answer for if they would really kind of work against each other or not. If Nintendo was willing to consider doing an annual event, building off of the starting point of the Switch event and then doing it from every year afterwards at the similar, maybe the same time in January or whatever. I don't really know if they would see that as a reason to stop doing Nintendo Directs. Maybe they would say, well, if we're going to put all this time and money and energy into an annual event, we don't really need to do the Directs. A, we save money, and B, they don't really have a benefit anymore because of the one annual event that happens every year. Or vice versa. Or maybe they would say, hey, we already do the Directs, let's go ahead and add an annual event to how we already speak to and communicate with our gamer. Bottom line, I just think the whole idea is really cool. It's something that for sure I want as a fan. Obviously, I'm not involved in the business side of things, and I certainly don't have a business degree or understand that, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend to tell Nintendo, obviously you should do it because obviously it's smart and obviously you'll make money because I said so. I don't really know if that's true. But as a gamer and a consumer and a Nintendo fan who happily spends a lot of my gaming dollars on Nintendo's products, I can say from my perspective, and maybe a lot of you out there will agree, you probably will, it would be really exciting to see them do that every year. Whether it's open to the public or the press or both or what have you, I mean, they could basically just emulate what Sony's doing right now with the PlayStation Experience. I think the PlayStation Experience is great. Not so much because it's actually great. Obviously, the last couple of years, some have been better than others. But it's great in the sense that it just exists. And that Sony takes the time, spends the money, and puts the energy into creating this experience and this great weekend for people within the video game industry to have stuff to cover and be excited about, and for the gamers and fans of Sony to be excited about. And as somebody who does love my PlayStation 4 and I like Sony as a company, I think it's great that every year in December, there's a reason to kind of get new information and new game reveals and announcements. Obviously, right now, I'm still riding the high of The Last of Us Part 2, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video. So I'm someone who's already seeing the effects of what Sony is doing yearly, and I know that Nintendo used to do it, and I know that every year when E3 happens, it gets really exciting. Imagine if Nintendo, again, just like Sony, took the opportunity to have something similar to what E3 is, only solely focused on Nintendo. And if we know there's one thing that Nintendo loves, it's Nintendo. Nintendo loves Nintendo. They love their damn selves. And if they could have a reason to just basically kiss their own butt and just put themselves out there for 3 days every year, I mean, I think that they would really look into the idea and consider it. The Nintendo of today might potentially consider it. And whether or not the Switch event specifically would be the genesis to that or not, obviously we don't know. And it might not be. But that doesn't mean it's not impossible for Nintendo and Kimishima and Reggie and all the other people and the folks behind Nintendo of Japan who a lot of us won't even probably know. That doesn't mean that they won't talk about it and consider it and discuss the benefits and look into it. How cool would it be if every time they had a new huge game reveal or a new surprise or a brand new Metroid or Galaxy 3 or the next Zelda or whatever, Animal Crossing's coming back to the Switch the way you really want it, that would be a great time to do it. Is that January Nintendo event that we know every January we can look forward to those couple of days where Nintendo reveals and shows off a bunch of stuff as we wait for E3 to come and they can show off even more stuff. I think it would be cool. Maybe they would even do it not in January. Maybe this one just has to be January because of when the Switch is supposed to launch in March. Maybe in the future, if they decided to do it, they could do it later in the year, like in August, something, during the fall. So that E3 covers the summer, Nintendo does the thing in the fall, Sony does the thing in the winter, and then we just wait for the new year to do it all over again, and everything's hunky-dory, and we're all excited, and there's all these great Nintendo things to buy and to be excited for. I think it could be really cool. So maybe if this Switch event plays out the way we want, if it feels exciting, if it feels like they're delivering it to make the gamer and the purchasing consumer excited, we know that that could be something they'd consider doing again in the future. How cool would that be? I definitely want to hear from you guys if you agree with this. Does this sound like an exciting prospect? Do you think Nintendo would really consider it? Maybe or maybe not. Obviously, that's the kind of whole gray area of the conversation. But beyond whether or not they would do it, would this excite you the way it excites me? Do any of you remember Space World? How many of you guys are old enough to remember those wonderful days when Nintendo was doing stuff yearly that always got people excited? And so I guess that's it for today, guys. Let me know what you actually think about this idea below. Would it get you excited? Would it not? Do you think it would be a smart move for Nintendo, like I kind of do? So that's what's up for today, guys. Thanks as always, of course, for tuning in. This is Rob of Rule of Two Review, and I will catch you guys next time on another video.